What's up, squad? It's your squid. Sooner or later, Australians are going to be asked to go to the polls to vote yes or no on this question. It's a referendum. It's the first referendum we've had in a while. I wrote a little script for you about it because I posted a short earlier this morning, this one, and my friend sent me a message being like, what's this voice to parliament thing? What is it that we're going to be voting on? And I figured you all might want to know as well, right? So, as I said, this is going to be the question that we have to respond to, yes or no. And like and subscribe, join Patreon, do all that sort of stuff. I'll see you after the jingle. You won't see me though, because I read from a script, so bunch of pictures coming your way. But yeah, if you want to know what the voice is, if you want to know what you're going to be voting on, stay tuned and stick around. Like and subscribe. You know how YouTube works. This video will outline the intended purpose of the hypothetical voice and what it is we're voting on before I tell you my opinion at the end. I want you to make an informed decision for yourself, not a scared or confused one, or one based solely on my bias, but I do also want you to know actually how I feel as well. Those who watch my videos regularly will know I always like to zoom out first for some context, and so first and foremost, we should know that the voice to Parliament was a specific request from a group of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leaders in a document that's known as the Uluru Statement from the Heart. That could be its own whole video, the Statement from the Heart, but just as a quick recap, an event called the Uluru First Nations Constitutional Convention was held in May of 2017, and I'll leave a link to the statement they made as a result in the description of this video. As a rough recount, leaders from a range of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities met at Uluru and attempted to consolidate the messaging and desires of First Nations people in Australia. Because after 200 or so years, it was evident that white Australia would never accept there are over 250 different, separate and distinct cultures on this continent, the prevailing logic over the centuries being that they're all dark-skinned, so they must all be one monolithic entity or something. But I digress. The leaders of a bunch of different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities got together and debated and collaborated over the course of a few days, and together they came up with the document known as the Uluru Statement from the Heart. In it, they asked for two things: the establishment of a constitutionally enshrined voice to Parliament, and for something they call a Makarrata Commission. A Makarrata Commission is a process of conversation, peacemaking, and most importantly, truth-telling. But we're not focusing on that part in this video because we're not having a referendum on that part. Deconstructing the first part of their request, and by extension the whole referendum, first we're going to define what a voice to Parliament actually is. The easiest way I've seen it summed up is that it's like a Department of Foreign Affairs, but for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders affairs. If you're under the age of 40, it may surprise you to hear we've actually had a version of it before in Australia. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission, known as ATSIC. ATSIC was the Australian government body through which First Nations people were formally involved in the process of government affecting their lives, and it was established by the Hawke government in 1990, then disbanded by the Howard government in 2005, but I'll get to that. They were predominantly an advisory body with some limited fiscal powers in relation to budgets and loans specific to the development of regional Aboriginal communities. They were always subject to the oversight from the Australian government, but they were not beholden to themselves with a blank chequebook by any means, but it cannot be said that their 15-year existence went by without legitimate controversy. In 2001, their chairperson, Jeff Clark, was named in some historical rape cases dating back to the 1970s and 80s, and his legitimate wrongdoing was capitalised upon by Howard for political gain, wherein he removed some fiscal powers and limited ATSIC's spending in ways that effectively resulted in the Commission dying a death by 1,000 small cuts. In 2003, a review was conducted, and I'll admit I'm reducing it to a sentence without much nuance, but the report basically stated that ATSIC had failed to connect with regional Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and was not fulfilling its intended purpose, i.e. it was a redundant expense. Prime Minister John Howard had been expressing doubts about ATSIC's value from the point in 2001 when Jeff Clark was stood down, so when the review was conducted specifically for that result in 2003, when the review was conducted and that result happened to come about in 2003, he saw it as a validation of his ideals, not a self-fulfilling prophecy that could have been avoided had someone actually been appointed to replace Clark in that 2-year time frame, but, again, I digress. The opposition leader at the time was Mark Latham, and so both major parties agreed prior to the 2004 federal election that ATSIC needed to be abolished. They just disagreed about the manner in which it would be and pretended that was a debate. So now most logical people who are still watching this can probably understand the reasons behind the specific constitutionally enshrined part of the request for a voice to Parliament, even if you don't actually agree with it. Because whatever shape their hypothetical voice to Parliament may take, to do its job successfully and therefore justify its existence, if ATSIC is a lesson to go by, it simply cannot afford to be held at the whim of whatever is politically expedient for the government of the day. In simpler terms, while they are not entitled to and are not asking to be devoid of oversight, the leaders who wrote the Uluru Statement from the Heart are clearly concerned that any given government will have the power to remove the voice entirely because of bureaucratic reasons, as opposed to improving it if something is legitimately not working. They do not wish to participate in a process where their hands will be tied by if, buts and maybes. They do not want a voice to be ATSIC 2.0. And so here we are, 6 years after the leaders met at Uluru. 6 years after the Uluru Statement from the Heart, we have a new government who took an Indigenous voice to Parliament as a key issue to the last election and won from opposition. Now, it would be folly to suggest this was a key issue for a majority of Australians, or even a majority of Labor voters, so the election win cannot simply be boiled down to Albo disagreeing with ScoMo about Aboriginal affairs. But that is why we're finally having the referendum. Because the last government read the Uluru Statement from the Heart and said, nah. Whereas the new government thinks it's a perfectly reasonable request and it's going about the legal formalities to achieve that goal. Personally, moving away from objectivity here, I agree with the Albanese government and I'll be voting yes on both questions. If you've watched any videos in my history and educational playlist, you'll know that I have a deep sense of pride in the Indigenous cultures of Australia and how their resilience and ingenuity are things our country could benefit from adopting on the whole as we move out of the mining boom into the world of renewable energy. But there I go on my soapbox again, and you don't want to hear about that in this video. I don't think an Indigenous voice to Parliament is divisive. I think recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and building the infrastructure required for them to become equal and valued members of the parliamentary process is just one step in resolving the divisions between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. Just one step. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments section of this video though, guys, I threw this together pretty quickly this morning, this script, and recorded and edited it on the same day. So if you're still here and you learnt something, please do me a favour by hitting the like button. Maybe share the video on social media if I helped you to understand and you think I could help your friends and family as well. And as always, hit the subscribe button. I've relaunched my Patreon page and I have YouTube memberships on, so if you felt like helping me pay some bills and whatnot, you know how money works. I like money. Turning some of your money into my money on a monthly basis would be ideal. Link to Patreon will be in the description as well, but failing that, thanks for watching, guys. If there's anything from Australian history or contemporary Australian politics you want me to do a video on in particular, or you just want to say g'day or discuss the content of this video, let's meet up in the comments section. If this is the first time you've stumbled across my channel, do me a solid, poke around, have a look through all the rest of my stuff. I do a lot of shorts. I post like 2 or 3 shorts a day most days, and there's a whole playlist of like stories from Australian history and stuff like that as well. Check them out, do me a solid. My channel is like experiencing a spike and I'm enjoying it, so thank you very much for everyone that is, you know, participating in making that happen. But yeah, that's what an Indigenous voice will be. It'll be a foreign affairs committee effectively, but for Aboriginal affairs and Torres Strait Islander affairs rather than foreign affairs. It makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you guys? I don't know. I'll see you when I look at you. You'll see me when you look at me. Thanks for watching.